The Syria crisis has dramatically deteriorated and could get totally out of hand anytime soon. The escalation involving major players, the United States and Russia, was triggered by a recent chemical attack in Syria. Russia and the Syrian government vehemently deny any knowledge of the incident in eastern Ghouta, but the United States and its allies have pointed the finger of blame at the Syrian government without providing any evidence. The Western Bloc has dismissed Russia's calls for an international probe into what really happened on Saturday evening.
This kind of talk is very dangerous to the world. Previously, actually a month ago, Russia, the head of the Russian army, predicted the very events that we're seeing today. They predicted 1 month ago that a fake chemical weapons incident would be staged, that they would produce some kind of contrived evidence, and that would lead to a U.S. attack on Syria. And the Russian general said that the consequences would be very grave.
US President Donald Trump and his advisors are said to be considering a major military campaign against the Syrian government. The US president has cancelled a trip to Latin America to focus on plans for action on Syria. Some say if the US decides to strike Syria again, the campaign will be much larger in scale than the limited missile strike in April 2017.
It's a threat it's a violation in several respects. Number one, the UN Charter explicitly says that member states of the United Nations should not issue threats of force, and that's clearly what we've got going on here.
Russia, which had deployed military personnel, aircraft and hardware to Syria, remains strongly opposed to any Western intervention against Damascus. Moscow has warned the US and its allies of grave repercussions if they launch an attack on Syria. The warning comes as the two sides remain locked in a diplomatic standoff over what course to take on Syria. The United Nations Security Council became a battleground again on Tuesday, where Russia clashed with the United States. The Council failed to come up with any solution. Russia vetoed a US draft resolution on the chemical attack, while 2 Russian drafts failed to get the minimum support. The US ambassador to the United Nations warned that America is determined to respond to the incident, even without the Council approval. Such remarks coming from top US officials have led to speculations that a military strike against Syria could be imminent. Fears are now growing over a possible large-scale intervention.
We're waiting to see what the United States is going to do. There's pressure on Trump to attack. It's a very bizarre situation where we've got a lot of people who should be calling for sanity and peace seem to be goading President Trump to start a war. So it's a bizarre situation. I think the world needs to speak out clearly. The lesson needs to be learned from the invasion of Iraq, the overthrow of the Libyan government, the attacks, the ongoing war in Afghanistan. When is the world and when are Americans going to learn the lesson that this is not leadership, it's misleadership.
The United States and its allies have repeatedly accused the Syrian government of launching chemical attacks against civilians. Most of these accusations have been leveled against Damascus, right when the Syrian army is making major advances. The latest episode comes as the army is completely clearing eastern Ghouta of terrorists. Analysts believe it is highly unlikely that the Syrian government was behind a chemical attack against civilians in Douma, because the mission there had already been accomplished. Observers are watching to see how the latest episode of the Syrian crisis will end. The coming days could see major developments that can change the course of the 7-year conflict.